deals with this, because it is a political problem, but it's also a social problem.
All right, and definitely it's also about, the economy and the state of unemployment in the country. For a lot of our viewers who are watching continentally, there's people who look at South Africa and say, this is one of the biggest economies on the continent. And, just taking a look at the infrastructure and how things work in South Africa. And many people ask, so how is this possible? So explain to our viewers who are watching us across the continent about the state of unemployment in South Africa, which is said to be behind this xenophobia.
So I think people need to understand that South Africa looks at some level officially come into our cities like, a functioning, slick, pseudo first world space. There's lack of access to land, lack of access to production in order to feed oneself. A third of the South African population relies on government grants in order to sustain it, inherited from the past, and has spent 22 years trying to address. But it hasn't finished that job and is in some senses lagging behind on some of the indicators. And certainly in a new global economy with new political dynamics in the geopolitical space between the United States and China and Russia, BRICS formations in South Africa's role inside the BRICS formation with Brazil, Russia, India and China means, elsewhere before, to other Africans. It's not geared at immigrants who are not seen as immigrants, but as expatriates, because this is the continued racialized gaze in South Africa. That immigrants are seen to be, people from Europe or Australia or New Zealand, and refugees or...
All right. Some say this is an indictment on the ANC. Of course, since Nelson Mandela took reign of the country in 1994. Angela, why has it taken so long since 1994 with all the black empowerment programs we know that have been in place to ensure that the blacks in South Africa, obviously it'll take a long time to bridge the divide that was there during the time of apartheid. But where do you think
that the South African industrial economy relied very much on mining and raw materials export, and very little on manufacturing and services-oriented job opportunity creation. So the economy has not grown in that direction. And because mining is dealing with a finite resource, after 120 years of mining in South Africa, some of the minerals have dried up. They just are no longer there. Agriculture, we face challenges of the drought. We face challenges of climate change. So jobs are drying up there. And then we shouldn't forget that the neoliberal post-1919 Washington consensus is also not necessarily a benefit to developing countries across South Africa and the global south very well. So there are those concerns. So some of those are failures of planning on government's part. But much of this is also a bigger social failure in South Africa. We cannot simply blame the government. All of us in South Africa need to take responsibility for this, because some of these attitudes towards the rest of the continent stem from across Africa. Ignorance about the rest of the continent still pockmarks very much, particularly intellectual classes in this country. We don't often know what languages are spoken, what traditions, what histories, what political struggles other Africans engaged in, the relationship between other Africans opposing apartheid and what debt we may owe them, and the complex relations of how apartheid's actions actually affected our immediate neighbors. And
to you is, what happens now? What needs to be done now by the government towards stemming this tide? It flared up last year, went down, and here we are again in 2017 with some more xenophobic attacks. So what needs to happen in the short term and perhaps medium and long term towards correcting this situation?
So my suspicion is in the short term, politicians need to go into the local spaces where this is happening and begin to not just talk to people, but help people to talk to one another and to begin to explain why it is we are where we are. We are where we are. And that's the work of not just politicians, but of community leaders, religious leaders, teachers, nurses, doctors. Everybody in this country has a role to play. Because too easily we say government must do the following things. Government officials and politicians have a certain role. But all 55 million people who live in this country have to take collective responsibility to address this problem, because it isn't going to be solved by the few. It is created by the many. It must be solved by the many. All 55 million of us must take responsibility.
All right, thank you very much. That's Angelo Fick joining us live from